Something shocking just happened in Eastern Europe. Poland, a country that Russia dominated for decades, is leaving Moscow in the dust economically, and it's not even close anymore. The numbers are brutal. While Putin burns cash on war, Poland is building the future. Stock markets are exploding, factories are booming, and investors who once bet on Russia are now flooding Warsaw. This is beyond just economic growth. This is a complete reversal of power. The gap is closing faster than anyone predicted, and Moscow has no answer. The humiliation is real, and it's happening right now. Let's cut straight to the numbers that matter. Poland's GDP per capita hit approximately $50,000 in purchasing power terms in 2024, while Russia sits around $47,000. That might not sound dramatic until you realize where these countries started. 20 years ago, Poland was significantly poorer, with its citizens earning barely half of what they make today in real terms. Poland is accelerating while Russia is stalling. The European Commission forecasts Poland's economy to grow 3.3% in 2026, while Russia's growth forecasts are being revised down to being between 1 to 2% for 2025. That's a 3-to-1 difference, and it compounds year after year. The projection tells an even starker story. By 2030, Poland is expected to surpass countries like Spain and South Korea in living standards, while Russia faces the real possibility of economic stagnation. Russia's economy confronts three fundamental limitations: a shortage of labor, exhausted production capacities, and stagnant export revenues due to sanctions. Think about what this means. A country that Moscow once controlled is now outpacing it in nearly every meaningful economic metric. This is mathematical certainty based on current trajectories. This mathematical certainty is shocking enough, but who's secretly bankrolling Poland's rise will stun you. Here's where Poland's strategy gets absolutely brilliant. The WIG stock index surpassed the 100,000 point mark for the first time in April 2025, and the index has gained 28.6% since the beginning of 2025, outperforming major global markets. That performance isn't luck, it's confidence. Real, measurable investor confidence, backed by fundamentals. Poland receives massive EU structural funds that fuel infrastructure, green energy, and digital transformation. This money doesn't sit idle. It multiplies through private investment, job creation, and industrial expansion. Private consumption remains the key driver of growth as real disposable income continues to rise robustly. Polish wages are climbing at double-digit rates in many sectors. Unemployment remains near historic lows, and consumer spending is strong. That's a growth cycle Russia can only dream about right now. Meanwhile, Russia, between frozen assets and the impact of the oil price cap, the coalition has already deprived Russia of more than $500 billion that it could have put towards its war effort. Foreign investment has collapsed. Capital flight hit hundreds of billions. The ruble has lost more than half its value against major currencies. Poland's stock market rally reflects something deeper than numbers. It shows that global capital believes in Poland's future, and where that money flows next reveals Poland's real masterstroke. So what do you think? Is this the beginning of Poland's golden age? Drop your thoughts below. And if you're enjoying this breakdown, smash that like button and subscribe for more content like this. While Russia exports raw oil, Poland is building future technologies, and the numbers are absolutely staggering. Poland became the world's second largest lithium-ion battery producer in 2023, surpassing the United States and trailing only China. Let that sink in for a moment. This has gone beyond just a quibble about batteries. It's about owning a crucial piece of the global electric vehicle supply chain, the fastest growing sector in manufacturing. Companies like LG Energy Solution, SK Innovation, Mercedes-Benz, and Northvolt have poured billions into Polish facilities. LG's plant near Wrocław alone is Europe's largest car battery factory, with production capacity exceeding 90 gigawatt hours annually. As at 2023, battery exports from Poland reached approximately $12 billion, representing over 2.4% of total Polish exports. That's a 38-fold increase since 2017. Poland is also Europe's leading exporter of electric buses, and tech giants, including Google, Intel, and Volvo, are establishing research centers in Krakow and Warsaw. Russia, by contrast, has been hemorrhaging tech talent. Hundreds of thousands of skilled workers fled the country after 2022, and the Western sanctions cut off access to advanced semiconductors and manufacturing technology. Moscow can barely sustain its domestic tech sectors, much less compete globally. Poland is participating in the green energy transition and also leading it in Central Europe. That's impressive infrastructure, yet the real collapse is happening where you'd least expect. Labor markets don't lie. They reveal the true health of an economy better than any government statistic. And right now, the contrast between Poland and Russia is absolutely stark. Poland's unemployment rate is set to reach 2.8% in 2026, already among the lowest in the entire European Union. The labor market is so tight that companies actively compete for workers, driving wages up at rates that outpace inflation. Polish workers have real bargaining power, something that hasn't existed in Russia for years. Russia's situation is the exact opposite. In late 2023, Russia faced a shortage of 4.8 million workers, according to its own Academy of Sciences. The CBR reports a marked 40% reduction in the current account surplus in the first half of 2025, and demographic collapse is accelerating. Russia's working-age population has shrunk by about 1 million people in just 2 years. But why the shortage? Well, war casualties, mass immigration, and a birth rate that collapsed decades ago. The most productive Russians, the engineers, programmers, and entrepreneurs, have left. What remains is an aging population and a labor market stretched to a breaking point. Defense and security spending will exceed 8% of GDP and account for 40% of total federal expenditure, crowding out investment in education, healthcare, and everything else that builds human capital. Poland invests in its people. Russia consumes them. Yet the real emergency shows up in the one place the government can't hide. Nothing reveals economic desperation quite like monetary policy. And Russia's central bank decisions tell a story of an absolute panic masked as control. Russia's central bank has raised interest rates to 21% as of February 2025 to counteract inflation. 21%. That's not a normal policy rate. That's an emergency brake applied to an economy careering toward hyperinflation. For context, even during severe crises, most Western central banks keep rates below 6%. At 21% borrowing costs, businesses can't afford to expand. Families can't take mortgages. Consumer spending freezes. The ruble has weakened, with the Russian currency having lost more than half of its value against the US dollar and the euro. That currency collapse means imports cost twice as much, fueling more inflation in a vicious cycle. Inflation has consistently run at more than double the CBR's 4% inflation target since the full-scale invasion, and the real inflation for many Russian households likely exceeds 20%. Prices for basics like food, fuel, and medicine are climbing far faster than official statistics admit. Poland, meanwhile, maintains stable inflation near 4 to 5%, and interest rates are on 5.75%. That's manageable. That's an economy functioning normally. Polish businesses can grow, invest, and borrow. Russian businesses are just trying to survive month to month. High interest rates are supposed to be a temporary medicine, but when they stay elevated for years, they become poison to long-term growth. These rates scream desperation, but what they're covering up is far more sinister. Here's something that should terrify anyone watching Russia's economy. The government has stopped publishing critical economic data, including figures on foreign trade, oil production and exports, and the financial health of banks and corporations. When governments stop publishing data, they are hiding something catastrophic. This isn't about national security, it's about preventing panic. If Russian citizens knew the real state of their banks and their export revenues, or even their true inflation rates, there would be runs on banks and currency exchanges. Bureaucrats themselves face restricted access to accurate information, leading to sanitized reports that omit inconvenient truths. Over time, this fabricated narrative becomes the basis for governance. The government starts believing its own lies, making decisions based on fantasy numbers rather than reality. Poland, by contrast, publishes everything. The Warsaw Stock Exchange reports daily. The Polish Central Bank releases detailed data monthly. Independent analysts can verify, critique, and analyze without government interference. Transparency breeds confidence, and confidence attracts capital. Fresh intelligence shows the number of registered enterprises dropped to 3.17 million by September 2025, the lowest since 2010. Most Russian businesses are dying than being born, and the government liquidated over 100,000 companies in 2024. That's an economy in managed decline, not transformation. Hidden data means hidden horror, but the resource drain exposes who's really paying the price. Defense and security spending will exceed 8% of GDP and accounts for 40% of total federal expenditure, a record not seen since the Soviet Union's Cold War era. That's not economic strength. That's economic suicide dressed up as patriotism. War economies create an illusion of activity. Factories run at full capacity, producing tanks and missiles. Unemployment drops because millions are conscripted or work in defense plants. GDP numbers look decent because you're counting the production of weapons that get immediately destroyed, but none of it builds lasting wealth. As the defense industry sucks up the lion's share of state investment, private investment is stifled now by high inflation, lack of competitiveness, and autarky. The 2025 Russian budget sacrifices spending on science, education, and health in favor of defense. That means no investment in technologies, education systems, or healthcare infrastructure that create actual prosperity. Poland invests in universities, research centers, green energy, and transportation networks. That's productive capital that generates returns for decades. Russia invests in artillery shells that explode in Ukrainian fields. One country is building its future, the other is literally burning it. Key Russian civilian sectors declined in 2025, with construction materials down 8.2%, plastic goods 6.3%, wood processing 3.4%, and metallurgy 3.3%. Everything outside the war machine is shrinking. While Russia is losing its workforce by the day, Poland discovered something that turned a crisis into their greatest economic weapon. Here's something most analysts miss but makes all the difference. Poland integrated nearly 1 million Ukrainian refugees into its workforce after 2022. That's not charity, that's strategic economic genius. These aren't random migrants. They are often highly educated, motivated workers fleeing war. They filled critical labor gaps in construction, manufacturing, healthcare, and services. Many speak similar languages, share cultural backgrounds, and adapt quickly. They pay taxes, spend money, and contribute immediately to economic growth. This solved Poland's biggest potential growth restraint: labor shortage. While Russia bleeds workers through emigration and war casualties, Poland absorbed a ready workforce that other European countries struggled to integrate. Polish companies got the workers they desperately needed, and Ukrainian refugees got jobs and safety. So what does Poland's rise mean for the United States? The transformation reinforces America's economic and geopolitical edge in crucial ways. Poland avoided the austerity trap. After 2008, the US used stimulus, not cuts. The result? Faster recovery, stronger growth, a labor market that rebounded post-COVID, and Poland followed that path with EU support. Russia chose a war economy that's consuming its future. When businesses decide where to invest, They see Russia's instability, sanctions, stagnant growth. Then they chose the US and its allies instead. Poland is becoming an extension of that success, a stable, growing economy integrated into Western markets. The contrast couldn't be clearer. Poland is building battery plants. Russia is building coffins. Poland attracts Google and Intel. Russia loses its engineers. Poland's stock market breaks records. Russia's economy breaks apart. Poland chose the future. Russia chose the past. The numbers, they don't lie. Poland's rise and Russia's stagnation is about systems, choices, and integration with successful economies. While Moscow burns hundreds of billions on war, Warsaw builds factories, attracts investment, and creates real prosperity. The humiliation is already here. The numbers prove it. And if this breakdown opened your eyes, hit that like button and drop a comment on where you think this goes next. And don't forget to subscribe, because we break down the economic stories that actually matter.